Morning, guys. Ryan would love the work. Hope everybody's good. Thank you for joining me. This is favorite album and artist. We're going to talk about the albums and artists that shaped us and how they influence us and continue to influence us. Make sure you follow us on Spotify. We have a lot of new music coming out in 2023. I was talking with Brad yesterday actually about some songs we're going to put out in April that we're super pumped for. I haven't seen a new song from Brad in a long time that we've actually put out. So super pumped for that. So let's jump into it. It's Over the Filter. Okay. Dude, I never listened to Filter. Why did I buy this record? I know he sang for Stone Temple Pilots after Scott Weiland passed. I know they did some shows or a show. Amazing singer. I don't know why I bought that record. It's on my iTunes, but super good record. I know I listened to it once or twice. I must have been in a mood or something when I got that one. But yeah, good stuff. Killing in the Name, Rage. If you haven't listened to this record, go listen to it. I don't care what kind of music you like, don't like. This record is a must listen. I mean, this surprised me right now because this record influenced me and us so much. It's crazy that I could forget about it for a second. Breyer had the book. He had the tab book where it tells you how to play all the songs. And I remember jamming with him in a music room at the high school and like learning these songs, learning these riffs. To this day, whenever I take out an upright bass, I don't play upright bass very much, but when I do, I play a Rage riff. I think it's Bomb Track. I think it's track 1 on the record. But Killing in the Name, that's the song that came up here. This record is so essential. It's minor pentatonic riffs, you know. It's drop D, it's E standard tuning, it's groove. The solos are insane. The vocals are awesome. This record is everything. I'm going to show you again because it's so crucial. I might have to go buy a t-shirt right now because I'm so inspired, but this record is so essential. Yes, Days of Future Past. Moody Blues. I don't remember who told me to get this record, but I've always been into prog rock in the sense that in high school I started listening to Jethro Tull a lot, or after high school, and they're prog rock. So it's rock it's got some classical elements. It's got a lot more notes. You know, the harmony is not necessarily more complex. It's not necessarily more jazzy, but they're throwing a lot more notes in there. They're getting a lot more classical, a lot more ornate. It's a lot more far-flung. But what was the other prog rock? King Crimson. So between King Crimson and Jethro Tull, you know, I was like a prog rock guy. And another band that is prog rock is Moody Blues. I mean, they might have been the ones who put playing rock music with an orchestra on the map. Something they were doing in the 70s, maybe the 60s as well. But this album, they played with London Festival Orchestra, conducted by Peter Knight. Insane arrangements, in your face, like movie type arrangements of music, set against the backdrop of these original classic rock songs, you know, that these 4 or 5 guys wrote. Nights in White Satin is a hit off of there. I remember Tuesday, the afternoon it's called. Tuesday afternoon. And I got this record, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago when I was over at R2 Studios in North Hollywood, recording a lot, practicing a lot, writing a lot. And I would listen to it every time I drove over there. And so massive, so inspiring. And as kind of a guy who makes music without an orchestra, I have some keyboards, but it makes me think, how can I incorporate these classical sounds into rock music, into indie rock and folk? How can I incorporate these sounds? And luckily nowadays you can hire players on Fiverr. I mean, I've hired string players, horn players for the new record coming up, and it's awesome to be able to have that. But it's a little bit of a step removed because you're not working directly with the artist in the same room. Maybe you can send them the music that you want them to play, or you can give them an idea or a vibe to go for. But it's not the same as being friends with the players, being the ones who actually are playing the instruments. But yeah, super fun to consider and figure out how to get those classical sounds on your rock music. How to record them, what to write, how to layer them. If I'm recording something one layer at a time, I could maybe use a keyboard to get a violin sound, a cello sound, and layer them up. But you think about an orchestra, it's a different thing. It's a group of people. I heard Seth, who's the guy from Family Guy. He has an orchestra. I heard them rehearsing the other day. And it just, nothing sounds like that. It's so tight. This whole room full of professional musicians, well-practiced, trained musicians, reading off the same page. That's something you could never do by yourself, layer by layer, So it's a special thing. My friend Steve told me I need to go see an orchestral performance in a proper venue, which I never have before. Years as a music lover, I never have, and he sold me on it. I'm going to do it one of these days, but because he's like, the venue, the acoustic environment is another part of the performance. The way the notes and the air and the vibrations all work together within that environment is something that I don't think you can really capture on a microphone. We listen to classical music and you listen to it on headphones or a stereo or whatever. They put microphones on it and they mix it up and it sounds fantastic. But, he's saying it's not the same thing as listening to it live, which of course I believe that. I've seen a lot of live rock music to know that it's not the same, as listening to a record. But yeah, Moody Blues, Days of Future Past, such a classic, such a go-to. The Beatles, Let It Be, that was the last record. It's so famous now because of the movie they made. I haven't listened to this record a ton, but I definitely gave it some spins. It's sad to talk about the Beatles in terms of it ending, of a band that ends, because to me the Beatles are the ultimate band, and to a lot of people I'm sure. I look up to them so much. I try to model our band Love the Work after them so much, in the terms that each guy in the band can sing and write. And so that's something that's so important to me. When you listen to a Beatles record, I was saying this the other day, from one song to the next, you're hearing different singers. John sings a song, Paul sings a song, and you're getting these different voices, but the music is still very cohesive, but it still has that variety as you go from song to song. And just the level of musicianship and songwriting that's there, and studio savvy, the way they recorded it, and George Martin mixed everything. It's so important, so one of a kind. I mean, nobody changed music like they did, and made being in a band possible, made being in a band even a thing. Like, without the Beatles, there wouldn't be rock bands. There wouldn't be guys like me and Matt and Brad buying guitars, making our own songs, making our own records. They were the first one. My dad said they were the first ones who played the instruments. Before the Beatles, there was songwriters, and then there were singers, and then there were band members, and everybody was separate. But once the Beatles came along, you saw that you could write the song, you could sing the song, you could play it with a couple of your friends. And that was a brand new thing at that time. And now the rock band it's such an essential part of the last 50, 60 years. So really, we have these guys to thank for breaking that open and making it even a thing, even a possibility. Round Midnight. This is those Ebersold play-along tapes. I got Round Midnight. I bought this one. It has Lullaby of Birdland, Round Midnight, September in the Rain, Autumn in New York, Love for Sale, Softly as in a Morning Sunrise. I got this one for Round Midnight, Lullaby of Birdland, Softly as in a Morning Sunrise. Those are songs that I know from listening that are good classic jazz standards. I am not proud to say, I bet I haven't learned a single one of them. I learned Lullaby of Birdland. I figured out the melody by ear. And I played through Round Midnight once or twice. Not enough to memorize it, which I will, though, believe me. I'm going to play that on the jazz broadcast on Saturday. But, and Softly as in a Morning Sunrise, it's one I've heard Sonny Rollins play a million times, and other guys, maybe Paul Desmond, but it's certainly a classic. But yeah, I'm excited to learn Round Midnight and play that. A lot of what I play on Saturday is, fast paced. So I need some of those slower tunes to kind of break it up and give it a little breathing room. and two, it's a monk tune, so the harmony is so beautiful. There's so much depth. That's something else I want to explore as a soloist and a performer, and pray that gets into my own writing and my own creativity. Let's see what else we got. Nice. Your Blues. So the other song was For You, Blue, and this is Your Blues. Beatles' White Album. This album I know a lot better. But I love the largeness of a double album. I think since day one, working with Matt and Brad, we talk about double albums. We joke about big things, but we think big. You've got an album like Love the Work, this one that shows right on the screen, and it's ambitious. It's got a lot of different styles. It covers a lot of ground, and I'm sure Matt and I discussed making that a double album, and I think we opted to do one disc, but it will be done. It definitely will be done, especially now that we're getting some more momentum with Brad working with us and everything. It will definitely be done. It's funny because the last record we did, Jazz Odyssey, was was only 20 minutes long, but it's an odyssey. And the new record, Never Enough, I'm working on right now, is only 20 minutes long. So I talk about these big, sweeping projects I want to do, but then when we actually come down to make a record, they're so short. But we've got this song, Pleasure Menu. We're going to release late in the year, and that song's 12 minutes right now. I would not mind making it even bigger. Last night I was working on a riff I'm going to release in April that I've got that going for, it's like 12 minutes long right now. So I don't know how I've got songs that are 12 minutes long, and yet when we make a record we can't get past 20 minutes, but we will get there. We will cross that bridge. So you've got something like the White Album, double album, just song after song, mood after mood. So much brilliant stuff in there. I love how rocking back in the USSR is. None of their songs have that rock sound like that one does. I don't know how to describe it, but it's got this wild energy that's so cool, and nobody else could do it. I mean, they did that. They brought that to this world. So got to be grateful for that. Alphaville sounds like a melody. So this I do know. Big in Japan. Somebody made a comment about being big in Japan, and he mentioned this band. I said, Alphaville, I don't know who that is. He said, oh, you got to check it out. Big in Japan. So that was one of the singles, and the big song nowadays is Forever Young. It's an 80s band. And in fact, this record's called Forever Young. But super good. Another one of those guilty pleasures like Squeeze that I never was into 80s music. I mean, I grew up in the 80s. I was into 90s music, and 80s music was dorky to me. But now later coming back to this, I'm like, wow. It's amazing how much music they created, how much feeling and emotion they expressed with just a couple of things, like a drum machine, a synthesizer, a couple of voices. It sounds so big, but then when you listen closely, there's not a lot there. It's just a few things, and it's interesting that you could create something so big with so little, with a couple of notes. It's encouraging though, as an artist, because that's what you're out to do. You're out to create something interesting, create something that moves people and that expresses what you're feeling. So it's encouraging to hear someone do that. A lot of it's in the vocals, a lot of it's in the singing. But a killer record. If you can, check out Forever Young by Alphaville. Killer record. One you might not have heard of. The Frogs. The song is called Satan. Every time I think about what's my favorite band, I think of the Frogs. Because, to be honest, I would answer with the Beatles or Radiohead or Zeppelin or somebody like that. But the Frogs are they're a joke band. But it's so funny. It cuts so deep. My friend Briar turned me on to them with the record It's Only Right and Natural. God, the shit they joke about. It's so good. It's so good. It's so fucked up. But it has to be experienced. It's so irreverent, I can see how a lot of people would be offended by it, but it's not in a mean spirit, the things that they joke about, and it's so damn funny. Definitely check out the Frogs. Check out It's Only Right and Natural. It's hilarious. If you don't think it's funny, I apologize, but it is so good, I think. Gillian Welch, April 14th, part 1. I just got that a month, 2-3 months ago, because I was texting with Matt and Brad, and Brad mentioned it. I can't remember if Matt was familiar with it or not, but I downloaded it that afternoon and listened to it. It's so good. It's like Americana folk music. I don't know if it's more than just a couple. It's her and a guy who sings. They both sing. I don't know if there's a band. I can't remember, but really good songwriting. The thing that struck me about the album that I noticed was the dissonance of the lead guitar playing. I don't know if you know, when you're playing lead, you're kind of looking around for notes. You know, when you hit a wrong note, it sounds like you're on your way to a right note. You know, and depending on whether you land on a downbeat or an upbeat determines how wrong it sounds. If it's on an upbeat, well, it's okay because you haven't landed yet, and you land on a good beat. Well, this guy uses that to a dramatic effect. Uses those notes that are on the way to other notes, and gets a really cool attitude sound by doing that. And the thing that really struck me was it reminded me of a lot of the shit that Brad plays as a lead player and as a rhythm player. A lot of the chord progressions that he writes, and how he'll land right on a dissonant note, or a note that's in a chord that's really makes your skin crawl. But it's so beautiful. That thing that Thelonious Monk can do so well, is use that dissonance in such a beautiful way that you can't do without it. You know, would Mama be proud? Elliott Smith, Figure 8. Yeah, when we were living in the barn, Matt saw Elliott Smith play on Letterman, and this is in our bio. But and when I saw those performances, it was Son of Sam and Stupidity Tries, and I was like, man, it's made of so many familiar elements, chords, you know, melodies, and yet it's such its own thing. You know, you hear it and you think, how come this hasn't been done yet? Because it sounds so familiar. It sounds like pieces of Beatles, pieces of, you know, these different artists and different bands. But you're just thinking, how did he do it and make it sound new? You know, and you just think you've heard it before, but you haven't. Nobody did it exactly like Elliott Smith did. Stupidity Tries, especially. And with a 3-piece, they played it with a 3-piece. I guess it was another guitar player, but man, such strong movement in the way he played his chords and structured his progressions. And as a band member, as a bass player or a drummer, you're really just accenting what he is doing. You know, you don't even need to dress it up or announce it necessarily. You're just kind of also doing it, you know, just to give it a little more body. But definitely one of the best songwriters of all time, Elliott Smith, without a doubt. And this is a great record because it's after he had some acclaim, and this record takes the production to a higher level. The stuff prior to this was more lo-fi, but this record's a little more hi-fi, and some of the things he did were a little more fun and daring, with piano and strings and layers of instruments. Damages Converge. Converge is insane. It reminds me of this riff I'm working on that I've had forever. I mean, I brought the riff from Maine almost 20 years ago here. Never put it out. Never really had a place or an environment to put it out in, but now I do. Now I definitely feel like I do. So I've actually it's set for like April 2nd release. But I'm so excited to bring heavy music out on the Love the Work name, and say, look, I make heavy music. We make heavy music. I'm so excited for that because Jazz Odyssey, it's got a lot of heavy parts. It starts out with a pretty heavy riff, and it goes to some heavy places, but overall that's not what it is. That's just an element within it. But I'm excited to do something that is just heavy. And the more I think about it, the funny thing is this riff is it's just repetitive. And I'll play some of it actually. Because it's the thing where I don't know what to do with it. I don't know what I want to add to it, or if I just want to let it be this thing. Because this particular riff just, in my mind, it can just repeat forever, and it never gets old. It just gets heavier and sicker. So I don't know. It's the thing where how could I do something else? The riff's going, how do I go to another riff? Do I go to another riff? Do I want to put in something else that's more rock? No. Classical? Maybe. Prog? Maybe. I definitely want some sick prog lead guitar. Probably, maybe some different riffs, but I don't know. But it's fun to think about, and it's insane to have a song that I've had, just a riff. It's not even a whole song. It's to have this riff for like 20 years, literally 20 years, and not finish it. I think that's one of the most exciting things, and also one of the most sad things is the idea that in a few months it's going to be done. It's fun to not commit. It's fun to have the thing. It's fun to have potential. It's a lot of fun to have actuality as well, but it's kind of sad because something has to die. You have to make choices, and you have to say yes to this, you have to say no to that, and that's a tough thing as an artist and as a person. But let me play a little bit of this, and you can see what it's going to be like. This is kind of circular. Man, that's a drum machine, but I'm going to get a real drummer to play it, or maybe I'll play the drums, I'm not sure. But so exciting, especially funny because Brad and I were writing yesterday, and got this poppy ass song. So 6 weeks before we put out that metal riff, we're gonna put out this pop song. Brad's got a folky country type of tune that we're gonna put out, and then 6 weeks later we're gonna put out just a face melting, soul crushing death metal song. Remembrance Gojira. I was thinking about them this morning. French band. It was a point when I said he's my favorite metal drummer. He has this swing that's very, very cool. I don't know what his name is, but if you look at the record, The Way of All Flesh, ba-do, ba-do, do-ga, ba-do, ba-do, do-ga. He's got this deep swing that he plays that's super fun, and it's a great accent and counterpoint to the heavy riffs that they play. Gojira is a super sick band. I think they toured with Meshuggah. Excuse me, they're definitely one of the best out there. Definitely check out Gojira. Grantley Phillips, I talked about him the other day. It's Grantley Phillips and Grantley Buffalo. I don't know if there's a difference or if he just changed his name for some records, but excuse me, the band or artist that Brad and Kimson turned me on to years ago. And super good. Super good. I'm not going to talk about him right now, but good shit. Candiria. This is that record that I talked about last time, where they make intricate, heavy music, and they did. And I loved it because it was offbeat, it was off kilter, it was weird, flips the beat. And then they started making records that were like more straight ahead, almost poppy. They had choruses and strong melodies and hooks, and I was like, no, veto. And then that went on for 5-10 years, and then I heard they were coming out with a record, and I got it, and it's this one, While They Were Sleeping. And it's so good. It's so good. It's like, makes me think of Broadway, because there's a story and there's an arc, and it's so emotional, it's so powerful. I mean, by the end of the record, I'm crying half the time I listen to it. It's so powerful. And it's an augmentation of what they ever did. They still have the weird, insane riffs, but they included straight ahead choruses, hooks, strong singing, to the other metal elements that they always used to do. And I thought it was the guitar player singing. It's like Mastodon, where all of a sudden this guitar player sings now, or hey, the drummer sings now, and he has this different voice, because it was a different voice. I'm like, who is that? But it was the singer. It was Carly Coma. It was the guy who always was the singer, and he just stepped it way up. And I kind of missed the transition because, like I say, I didn't listen to those records. But if you look at What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Stronger, that's another record that I love now from 2004 that I didn't like. That's when they lost me, but now I listen to it, and it's one of my favorites. It's so good. It was kind of this growth period for them, this change that they made and went through, and amazing as artists. Let's see what else we got. Disaster Natural, Tomahawk. God, when's the last time I listened to this record? I'm trying to look at the artwork. But that's Mike Patton. Speaking of vocal talent, oh my God. Who's more talented than Mike Patton? He sang with Faith No More, Mr. Bungle, and a lot of other bands. He's massively creative, which is something I respect and relate to, because I strive to be as creative as someone like him. Not only creative, but he's putting out the records. It's one thing to make a lot of music and have a lot of ideas, but it's another thing to make a band, make a record, play shows consistently for decades. And that's what Mike Patton does. He has a massive talent, but he has a massive output. He steps up to the plate and delivers. And that's something I respect and aspire to do as an artist, is produce. And that's why a couple weeks ago I set a release schedule for 2023. I mean, we put out Jazz Odyssey the end of 2021. So now it's the end of 2022. Now it's 2023. So a whole year I didn't put out a record. So there's a part of me that's like my head is exploding because I didn't put out a record. I didn't put out a single. I didn't put out an EP. I worked on a lot of shit. I worked on Never Enough record, but I didn't actually deliver. So, and that bummed me out. So I was like, okay, I need to do something. So, I started learning this stuff from Jesse Cannon, just getting into the beginning of it. But he's saying, if you want to get on Spotify playlists and catch that momentum, you want to release music every 6 to 8 weeks. So I was like, all right, then I've got a shitload of music. I'm going to release music every 6 to 8 weeks. So I just went on a calendar and I wrote down every 6 weeks. And then I took my spinner wheel here and picked songs I want to release and picked them at random. So whatever, February, whatever. Okay, here's a song. March, whatever, here's a song. So now I've got 10 songs scheduled for release over the course of the year and into 2024. And then after 10 songs, I'm going to put out Never Enough. So that gives me time to finish the record. But it also sets a date that helps me produce, helps me hit that target. So super excited. The first one's going to be a lo-fi tapes. It's like some songs I recorded on tape a couple years ago. Unfortunately, Matt and Brad are not going to be on it. They felt the schedule was too tight, I think, because it's in a hurry. We really get to move to make it happen. So I'm going to play I think everything on those songs. But after that, the next one is going to be a song I wrote, and Brad and I are going to do a split single. But we're in the very early stages of that, so we'll see. I don't know if we'll stick to that plan or not. We'll see. But if we do, I'm super excited because haven't had an original Brad tune ever put out. He made a record, Bikini Cowboy, but he didn't put it out. That was 2008 or whatever. So to have him step up to that level, so grateful, so excited for that. So Tomahawk, Mike Patton, thank you for your inspiration, just being so massively creative. Sunset Boulevard, Space Hog. Space Hog, I know I told you guys, was one I listened to back when I was hanging out with Jeremiah. We were doing skits and animations and stuff like that, working on movie scripts. And at that time, the Space Hog record had come out, and what was it called? It wasn't In the Meantime, it was Resident Alien. And we listened to that tape over and over again. We put almost every song on the album in our skits, in our projects. Massive influence, just rock, attitude, big guitar solos, big attitude, and so killer. And the other records they made, what is this one called? As It Is on Earth. This was a newer one, but the Hogacy and there was another one that they came out with after Resident Alien that were super rocking. This one I didn't listen to a million times just because it was newer. I wasn't listening to a lot of Space Hog by that point, but it is a good record. Rolling Stones, Street Fighting Man, Beggar's Banquet. Look at the artwork. Bob Dylan's Dream, it says. That's so tight. Don't listen to the Stones a lot. Huge respect for them, but don't listen to them a lot. However, the band Across the Great Divide, that's one that I did listen to a lot. When I decided to take my songwriting to the next level, I started learning songs. So I said I'm going to learn a song each week just so that I can learn a lot of music. And I did that, and I learned a lot in that process. It was so fruitful as a project to undertake. But a lot of the songs I learned were by the band. I was listening to them at the time, and I guess one guy wrote all the songs, Robbie Robertson. But fantastic. fantastic bunch of songs and a very unique sound that they got. They're another band that I try to model us on because they all sing. They all can sing lead vocals. And that's something I love, to have that depth and variety within a band where you're hearing multiple singers. You know, you're going to really different places from song to song because it's different singers. Even though in this case, one guy wrote all the songs, so there's different singers. But that's really interesting because it definitely covers a lot of vibes, covers a lot of bases. Just from the fact that I guess he wrote these songs, but different singers singing them. I'm not used to just talking for an hour. My voice gets dry. Oops. Mozart, baby. Brilliant. Let me leave it at that for now. Alphaville again, Gojira again, Spacehog again, Mozart again. Blur, Death of a Party. I didn't listen to Blur a ton. I did for a moment when I was quite a bit younger. And very cool band. Makes me think of the guy from Self for some reason, Mac Mahaffey. I guess because it kind of feels like his band, as opposed to like a band. It feels like his thing. But I don't know if it really is or not, but that's what it felt like to me. But great songs, great rock music. Matthew Erickson, Save the Best for Last. I love the crow. I wanted to use a crow for something. Oh, I think for the new lo-fi tapes I'm going to put out. But yeah, that's Matt Erickson. This record is out. I convinced him to put it out. It's called The Grand Facade. He recorded it in, I don't know, 2004, 2001, kind of the early days. Let me see if he put a date on it. Go to album, Grand Facade, 2007. Sick. So he set the release date as 2007. He put it out only a couple years ago, but so he made it in 2007. That's badass. This record is awesome. Drink with Captains. Brad, I think he produced that. He played bass on it. Jerry Bomb, one of my favorite songs of all time. Let me play you Cherry Bomb, actually. AJ used this in one of his skits. just like, holy shit. So epic. Oh man. So high. Blind Melon for my friends. It's so sad, but it's also kind of happy. I mean, Shannon Hoon passed away. He was such a part of that band. I mean, I don't want to say he was that band, but he was such a part of that band and what made them so special, Blind Melon. But after he passed away, they made another record with another singer. And it's good. You know, it's not as good. But super sad, but also very happy because they had to continue. I mean, it's what can you do in a situation like that? You have to continue. You know, that's who they are. That's what they do. So glad to see they made that record. It's totally good. The singer's freaking amazing, and the band is always amazing. The sound is great. If I Love Again, nice. This is one of my favorite jazz records of all time. If I had to answer in a pinch, I could say this is my favorite jazz record. Study in Brown. Clifford Brown and Max Roach. Harold Land plays tenor. Who plays the bass? George Morrow bass. Richie Powell piano. I think Richie Powell was related to Bud Powell. I might be wrong about that, but this record just has this sound and this mood. It's so swinging. It sounds like Price is Right. But it swings and they rip. All these guys rip. There's so many familiar licks in it, 2/5 licks, that I still have to rip off. I still play a lot of them just unconsciously, but there's some I gotta consciously go in there and rip off directly. But Max Roach, king, if not the greatest jazz drummer. Clifford Brown, massive trumpeter. Harold Land was kind of an unknown guy in the jazz world, but he rips on this album. Totally rips. There's a song by the band Yes called Harold Land, and they're singing his praises. And I think the fact that they wrote a song called Harold Land is amazing. I mean, is there a song called John Coltrane, Charlie Parker, Sonny Rollins? You know, so they're mentioned in so much music, but they're influential. But the fact that they would name the song Harold Land, but he rips. But this band then made a record with Sonny Rollins. So instead of Harold Land on tenor, Sonny Rollins played tenor, and that's my other favorite jazz album, +4, Sonny Rollins +4. So he's playing with this band. He's playing with Max Roach, George Morrow, Richie Powell, and why am I not seeing the piano much? Oh, Richie Powell's the piano player. And it's another fantastic record, but it has that swinging, I don't know how to describe it, almost kind of fun sound. Like if you think of, it makes me think of The Price is Right. There's songs on here that it makes me think of The Price is Right. And obviously nobody's talking about how that's the height of cool, The Price is Right, but there's a funness and a energy that's so undeniable about this swinging sound. And it's on this record so much, and it's on +4, you know. False Hot is one I play. I play every Saturday, and you know, I made a clip for Christmas, Merry Christmas with all the notes, and the first tune I'm playing is False Hot, and it sounds like a Christmas tune. You know, it just has this fun, happy element. Maybe that's what it is. It's happy. But anyways, it's so powerful. Killer records. If you don't listen to jazz, listen to Kind of Blue by Miles Davis, but check out Study in Brown by Clifford Brown and Max Roach. It is so good. And the other one is Sonny Rollins +4. I'll show you. Dude, it's just so swinging. It's just so happy. +4. Sonny Rollins, Clifford Brown, Max Roach, Richie Powell, George Morrow. So good, so swinging. Wearing out my throat. But yeah, Clifford Brown, Study in Brown. Such a classic, such a classic. Beatles, trying to get the lights reflecting. Everybody's got something to hide except me and my monkey, the Beatles. I wonder who wrote that. Probably John Lennon. No Lullaby, Jethro Tull. Yes. So, Heavy Horses. This was just on the other side of what I listened to in Jethro Tull. I listened to them up to like 1975, Minstrel in the Gallery, and after that I was like, no, they did War Child, and then Heavy Horses. But now that I'm a bit more mature, I listen to them and I can appreciate them, and they're really good. It's the same stuff, but excuse me, but yet it's not. You know, I don't like this record as much as I do the ones before 1975, but it's still good. You know, you might dig it. Nice, another Jethro Tull. Repeat, Best of Jethro Tull Volume 2. Ian Anderson with his cod. Yeah, fucking beast. Best of Jethro Tull. What was it called? Original? No, it wasn't Original Masters. It was the other one with the white album cover like this. And either my mom had that tape. I think my mom had that tape. And I listened to it a lot. And that was kind of my introduction to like recreational listening of Jethro Tull. I know Casey had Original Masters, or I bought the CD Original Masters, and that's another greatest hits album that covered a lot of territory and was so good. But it covered all that pre-1975. I don't know if they made a best of that included anything after that point, but it had like Too Old to Rock and Roll, Too Young to Die, like on the back half of the record, which was this guitar thing. So massive. When I heard it at the time, I was just blown away. It's just so big. You know, you don't hear anybody going that big in rock music, and that's one of the things I loved about Jethro Tull, is they're just swinging for the fences. They're just going for it. And I love that because it's outside where we typically go. It's outside what we typically reach for. But, you know, yeah, I don't know if you want to be limited by that, by what typically, you know, people go for. There's so much more beyond that part of us wants to explore and needs to explore and express within. But so bravo Jethro Tull for taking us there. Nice. Another one, same band. Clifford Brown, Max Roach. Let me get the lights again. That's the same band. Max Roach, George Morrow, Harold Land, Richie Powell. They have at least 3 records with that band. Brown and Roach Incorporated was the other one. This is, what was it called? I can't remember what it was called. Let me look. Clifford Brown and Max Roach it was called. Bunch of great tunes. It's not as like fun and happy as Study in Brown, but it's the same thing. It's the same, if not the same recording session. It's the same group, same time frame. Super killer. So I had to buy the other 2 records that are on that session. If I Would Leave You, Sonny Rollins. What's new? I got this one when I was going down to Portland with my friend Jeremiah and his father. And we would go, his dad would do a radio show, and Jeremiah and I would walk down sometimes to the record store. What was it called? Not Barnes & Noble. What was the other bookstore? Maybe it was Barnes & Noble. but I would look at jazz CDs, and I would look through the Sonny Rollins CDs. I'm like, yes, he's got so many albums. So I was looking for the ones with Jim Hall, because he played with Jim Hall. And he had The Bridge, which I bought, which I wish I had that with the original artwork. But the other one I saw Jim Hall was on was What's New, which is this record. Man, Jim Hall plays some cool shit on this record that I'm kind of discovering now what he was doing. I'll show you in a minute. But at the time, it was like there wasn't enough Jim Hall on here for me. I was like, I wish there was more, because he only plays a couple of solos, and you hear him play rhythm guitar on a couple things. I mean, there's only a couple songs on this record in the first place. What's New? There's only like 5 songs. I was like, kind of a tease, but what he plays is so fantastic. He's such a master. But I'll show you a thing I kind of discovered. When you're playing, so let's say you play, and I'll be quick because I've only got a minute. But if you're playing an A minor, you just assume it's the 2. So if you're playing an A minor, and the band says play A minor, you can play anything that's in this key, and it's still A minor. So if I play A minor, and if this is the 2, then the chords in the scale go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. So instead of A minor, I'm going to play C major. So that's still A major, because that's the 3, that's the 5, that's the 9, that's the 7. So it's a A minor 9. So the fact that the chart says A minor and I play C, from a theory standpoint, from a guitar standpoint, you don't do that, and that's how I thought. I had that limited framework. But a lot of what good players realize is that interchangeability of chords that you can do. And so now a lot of my playing is a lot more interesting and spicy, thanks to this realization that you can play those other chords within the key and still get just other colors of that same A minor chord. So as long as the bass is playing A minor, the soloist is playing A minor, as a rhythm player, you can play these kind of extensions of the chord, and as a lead player, you can explore that as well. So I'm at the very beginning of that journey, but something Jim Hall plays that's very colorful on What's New is he does a lot of that. So yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us. Please follow us on Spotify. If you like what you see here, you can also support us directly on our Spotify. There's a fan support button. And thank you so much. See you soon. Take care.